Hey everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and I am joining you from Tucson, Arizona, where the weather is nice and mild in January 2022. And I just want to give a shout out to all of my viewers on the YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. Thank you for watching the replay. This is a Facebook Live, and so we're going to be having people joining on our Facebook group as we go. And because of that, this is a relaxed, free class, and we're going to be interacting and having a conversation. So I see there's people already joining. Thank you for being here. Let's see, as always, I gotta look at my notes. So let's talk about our topic. Let's touch on our topic, then we're going to do announcements, and then we are going to dive right in. If you're already here, if you're joining live, I want you to say hello and let us know where you're joining from, okay? So the topic for today's free Facebook Live is why I no longer call myself New Age. Why I no longer call myself New Age. And then an alternate title that I was going to call this, I was going to call this 11 New Age Deceptions. But I thought about it and I was like, there's other videos out there that talk about New Age deceptions, blah, 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 blah. And we are going to talk about that, but I'm going to share some personal stories too, just to really, instead of just giving you a list of deceptions, I want to give you stories of things that I observed and things that I went through that were reasons why I now no longer call myself New Age at all. You will never hear me call myself that ever again for the rest of this lifetime, at least. So, hey everybody. Hi, Christy from Kennesaw, Georgia. I'm going to grab my granny glasses because I'm realizing I had trouble reading that. So I have my glasses ready just in case. Victoria is saying hi. Hi there. So this could be a controversial topic. I was thinking about it. And I was like, oh man, do I really want to do this? Because it's been kind of rough energy lately. But it's important. So we're going to talk about it. Vicky is saying hi from Dallas, Texas. Hello there. Okay, so before we get into our main topic, I want to just get our announcements out of the way. So that's done. So, I know some of you joining live, we already know each other, but for those of you who are new, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, which is psychicprotectionsanctuary.com, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. If you want to learn more about what it is that I do, and if you want to find out, how you can work with me more, I always make a point of having a lot of free content out there, but there is a big firewall up, for lack of a better word, between the free content and my really premium content. And the premium content is in my academy. It's the Spiritual Empowerment Academy, and you can find that on my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. You can take a look at what that's all about, and it is a paid program. So there's a lot of free stuff on the YouTube channel, and then there's a paid program where you get a ton. And I just love on my students all the time and give you guys all sorts of juicy attention and assistance. So if that's what you're looking for, go there and check it out. And I want to say, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. And is it Gita? And if not, then please correct me. people mispronounce my name all the time. They call me Maya instead of Maya. So, yeah, if you feel like correcting me, please go ahead, because I want to say your name right, is joining us from Denmark. Good to see you. I'm glad you could make it. We've been emailing back and forth today. Okay, so before we get into sharing stories about the New Age, some stories experiences that I've had with the New Age. Okay, good. I'm glad I pronounced your name right. So before we get into stories, I want to just speak generally here. So I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine here in Tucson, and we were just talking about our frustrations with some of the popular ideas in New Age right now, and that actually have been popular for a while. And she's been working in the spiritual community for many, many, many years here. And so she's been around the block even longer than I have been. Because for me, it's been like 30 years. For her, I think like 50 or something like that. And we were just talking about how it's very frustrating. And what she pointed out is that over the years, in her work and her connections and everything, she noticed that there were a certain percentage of people who would leave the New Age world and would go back to Christianity. And some of them have written books. I actually talked about one of them last month. I don't really count her as I don't count the person that I did the video about last month. I don't think of her as a valid source because she's kind of really out there. But just speaking generally, there are enough people who have left New Age and gone back to the religion that they were raised with, or something similar, like they were raised of some type of Christianity, and then they were New Age for a while, several years, and then they realize, ooh, there's something wrong here, and then they go back and to some flavor of Christianity. Now, I'm not saying that that's the correct solution. I mean, if it's the correct solution for you, then it is the correct solution. But I found it to be an interesting observation. And even if you go on YouTube, you can, I don't know, I haven't tried to search for this, but I've noticed a lot of videos. You could probably search New Age converts to Christianity or something like that. Of course, you'll find a ton of stuff about Doreen Virtue, but you'll find other testimonies from other people who are not famous, because Doreen Virtue is a famous person that we've talked about before. And again, I don't put a lot of stock into what she says, what Doreen Virtue says, but it's very interesting that all of these non-famous people have done something similar. It's not a huge percentage, but it's enough that it's noticeable. And that doesn't make me think that the solution is to go back to Christianity, because there are plenty of other people who go from New Age to just not practicing anything, or from New Age to paganism, or other alternate paths. But I think the pattern that I notice is that there are people who will be involved with New Age for a period of time, and then at a certain point, maybe all of a sudden or gradually over time, they will have this realization that something is not right. And a lot of people, when they've shared their stories with me, they feel a sense of alarm. Like, it's not that it wasn't the right fit for me. It's like they feel very strongly like there was something very wrong. There was something very, very, very wrong. And kind of like, and there's some people who it was kind of scary for them. Like when they woke up from the dream and they were like, whoa, something is definitely wrong here. this is like bad, but they couldn't really put their finger on it. And so it does make sense to me why someone would like flee and run back to what their faith of their upbringing was, because that can be comforting. So I just thought that was interesting that came up in that conversation between myself and my friend. And again, I'm not saying what I think the answer is or that it's one particular path, but it's an interesting pattern. The other thing that I want to say is one of my values, one of my very firm beliefs is that I very much believe in free will. And I don't think that it is my job to tell you or anyone what you should believe or or to tell you that you're wrong about believing a certain way or following a certain path. And even when I'm like at an event where there's a lot of New Age people around me, I don't go around telling them, you're doing it wrong. Like, you shouldn't be believing this. Because, everyone is where they're supposed to be. And my approach is that I get on here on my platform, which is the YouTube channel, the Facebook group, and I pontificate and tell you what I think. But I don't want to impose on anyone's free will. And so I don't go around like psychic fairs and wag my finger at people like, you should really not be believing that or whatever. So the point being, whatever you believe is totally okay with me. I love you. But I'm gonna share what I think right now, and that's why we're here. So we have lots of people joining live here, so go ahead and say hi. Let us know where you're joining from. Okay, so like I said before, I actually was gonna just go through like 11 New Age deceptions. And I had a list of them, and I'm still gonna go through those. But about an hour before this Facebook Live, I took a break. And all of a sudden I was like, no, I need to tell stories, because stories are a lot more interesting than me going through a list. And it also, I think, will make it more compelling, and you might be able to relate to some of these stories. And by the way, even though the title of this is why I no longer call myself New Age, I don't identify as New Age. I don't use that title with other people. I don't think of myself as New Age, but are there aspects of what's considered New Age that I still utilize? Absolutely. Like, I have my what's it called? Rose quartz. I have my rose quartz here, and I have my other crystals, and I like a lot of the aspects that, like a lot of the tools that people use who are involved in New Age or things that are thought of as New Age. Absolutely. I use a lot of that still. I tend to have a moderate approach to a lot of things. Like, I don't believe in throwing everything out. I love crystals. I still love essential oils. Essential oils are not New Age, by the way. They've only recently been considered New Age. Like, they've been part of holistic health for many years. I've been studying those for like 30 years. Do I meditate? Yes. Do I work with spirit guides sometimes? Yes, sometimes I do. I mean, so there's still a lot of things that I do. So please don't assume that I've thrown everything out. But once I get into these stories, you'll understand what I'm saying. I definitely do. I no longer embrace most of the popular ideas, and most of the ideas. There's some of the practices that I still use, but most of the ideas I reject, actually. And Rochelle is saying hello from Wisconsin. Hi there. You guys, don't be shy. And anything you want to share, feel free. The only thing I'll let you know, on my device, if you share a really long story, it's hard for me to access all of it. And it's not that I don't want to hear your longer stories. we actually have a lot more opportunity for lots of personal sharing in my paid academy, the Spiritual Empowerment Academy. But if you'd like to share, feel free to share a sentence or maybe 2 sentences, and I'll be able to read that just fine. But it's just an issue with my device. So if you share a really long story, I will not be able to see it. Joe is joining us from Tbilisi, Georgia. Hello there. Okay. Oh, before I get into stories, I wanted to also just make another general comment. I talked about this observation that I've made about New Age and about a lot of people leaving New Age. And there are some people who will leave New Age and go back to their faith of their childhood. I see a lot of testimonials of people who go back to Christianity. I haven't noticed a lot of other stuff on YouTube as far as testimonies. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people going back to other faiths. But there's another thing that happens is that people who are practicing New Age will wake up from that matrix deception and they will go into the truther movement. And the truther movement can also, like, if you don't know what that term means, think in terms of conspiracy theories. That's turned into a really bad word in the last couple of years because of COVID and all that other stuff. But yeah, so that's like this whole other matrix. But I want to just say that my observation about the truther movement is that also comes with a lot of issues, and I might do a video on that at some point. It seems like people wake up from the bubble that they're in, the matrix bubble. Let's say they have been raised in a certain faith, they start to wake up from that and step outside of the box. And when they step out of the box, they turn to New Age ideas and practices. And then after a certain number of years, they start to go, wait a minute, something's not right here. So they step outside of that box and they go into the truther movement sometimes. But that's still inside a box, and there are deceptions and distortions inside each one of those boxes. And it's like being in the Matrix. Of course, Matrix 4 movie just came out. I haven't seen it yet, but I've been using the word Matrix a lot lately. So it's like when you're in the New Age, you start to wake up from that Matrix program. You wake up because it's a false program. You wake up from it and you go, oh, wait a minute, this is all wrong. And you wake up from that Matrix false program and you jump into the truther movement, let's say. And that's also another false program. And so you wake up from a dream and you're still in another dream. And so I think that's as much as I will say about that rabbit hole. But there's a bunch of people waking up from programs, but not realizing that they're still in another program. So we need to question everything that you believe. And just because somebody tells you something, please don't believe it. I don't mind at all when people question me. I want you to question what I say. I love it when people tap into their own inner guidance and figure out what they really think. I think it's good to hear other people's perspectives, and that helps you get clear on what your perspective is. So that's why I get on here on my soapbox. And Daniel says, lots of waking up. Yes, lots and lots of waking up. Okay, let's get into stories. So these are just a few random stories that little situations that I experienced that brought me to where I am today, where I definitely have no interest in calling myself New Age or identifying with that terminology. And this was a gradual process that happened to me. 15 years ago, I was most definitely very entrenched in New Age. Like if someone had asked me, like, how would you describe your spiritual path? Like, would you give it a name? And I would often think about it. I'd be like, well, I'm not really sure. 'Cause I kind of didn't fit into any one exact box, but I would usually describe myself as New Age. And I hung out in the New Age community, and I went to a lot of New Age events, and, I went to different spiritual centers and went to all the events. It was actually, not only part of my career, but part of my social, and support system. So, over time, when I was going through some of these different experiences, over time, my New Age rose-colored glasses started to, get clouded over. And so I was like, this is not looking as lovely as I thought. And I was starting to become disenchanted. And the first thing that happened was, I think it was about 12 years ago, this was a very impactful thing for me. It might not sound that big, but you never know. Like sometimes one little thing will happen and it really shifts you in a big way. So about 12 years ago, I was going through some stressful life events, and I was a participant, a member of an in-person spiritual circle. It was a women's circle, women's healing circle, and we would meet in person out in nature. So it was very earth-based, very nature-based, and I really miss that circle, by the way, but I can never go back. I mean, it's disbanded now, but I can never go back either, because my rose-colored glasses are all ruined now. Because it used to be just this magical circle for me, and I felt like I got so much, and it was part of my support system, but I was going through a lot of stress. And when I showed up for the class, I was like, as I was walking in, I was thinking about how we would have our introduction circle at the beginning, and we all would each of us would hold the talking stick, and we would share how we were doing that day. And I see you, Nora. Nora, good to see you. And we would just share a little bit about how we were doing. And I remember as I was walking in, I was thinking, I want to really be authentic today. I want to share that I feel really scared. That I felt really scared, really overwhelmed about some things in my life, my living situation. It was like I had moved to a place that was in very poor condition. It was a place that was in very poor condition. So I was very stressed out about it, because I couldn't fix anything, and it was very subhuman living circumstances. So I was very overwhelmed about this. And so I walked in, and I'm feeling comforted, and I'm like, oh good, I'm going to be able to share from the heart. And so we sat down, and when it was my turn to share, I went ahead and shared, this is what's going on. I feel really scared. I feel really vulnerable. And I just needed people to just be present with what I was feeling. And the facilitator of that circle, she said, Maya, you need to stop talking about negative things, because you're drawing it to you, and you're the one that's causing this to happen to you. And she stopped me and asked me what she said was, Maya, you need to repeat after me, cancel, clear, delete. You need to cancel, clear, delete the negative things that you just said. And so, being the good girl that I was trying to be, and the participant, I followed what she said, but I felt very deflated. And at the end of the circle, she asked me to stay afterwards, and she talked to me and told me more about how I was causing my own problems, and that I needed to be positive, that I should only say positive things. And this was a circle that I had really that had really helped me for over a year. It had helped me through some really hard times. And so when I left, I just felt totally like cut down and deflated. And I remember in the weeks that followed, like those rose-colored glasses were like cracking, right? And I remember talking with a friend of mine at the time and just talking for like hours because I was like, this is really wrong. I don't understand why she was saying this, but I was seeing a lot of other people in the new age who were doing the same thing, this positive vibes only thing, and you're not allowed to be authentic or real because, well, they wouldn't say you're not allowed to be authentic and real. I'm saying that. But they would say, you know, like whatever you're speaking of or thinking about, you're drawing that to you. So if anything bad happens to you, you're causing it. And so I was seeing this everywhere. And then I was also seeing it like in the place that actually was my main support system. So that was the start of me becoming very disenchanted with the new age. And actually, I never went back to that circle ever again. I realized that was very toxic. That practice was very toxic. So I never went back. Around that same time, no, I think it was a couple of years later. So a couple of years later, I'm laughing, but this is not funny at all. I'm just laughing at how, you know, it's just such an awful story that I'm going to share. It's so bad. It's like, I can't help but laugh because it's just so bad and uncomfortable. So a couple years later, I went on a date. I only went on one date with this person. I don't even remember his name. And we went out for Indian food. And he's sitting across the table from me, and he's very excited. He's talking about this yoga training program that he's in. And he's saying, oh, I just love it. And the teacher, who was a woman, I don't remember her name, she's so wonderful. And I'm learning so much. I'm learning like even more than that. It's so much more than just the yoga poses. It's all of these spiritual practices and beliefs. And I don't even know what prompted him to think that this was an okay thing to say ever, let alone on a first date with a woman that he barely knew. Like, idiotic. Okay. He says, so he's excited about this yoga training, and he's talking about how he's learning about the law of attraction and how like energy attracts like. And he says, for example, I want to give a trigger warning right now. If anyone has been a victim of sexual assault. Okay, trigger warning. Okay. So he says, he's talking about how he's so excited about what he's learning. And then he says, he's talking about how like energy attracts like. And he says, well, for example, if a woman is raped, it has happened because she was a vibrational match to that happening to her. Her vibration, she was putting out the vibration of being a victim, and that is why she had that happen to her. So I'm sitting there across the table from him, and literally my head was about to explode. Like, I feel like it's going to explode right now, actually. Oh my God, it makes me so mad. It makes my eyes red right now. I've told this story to a few people, and they've told me funny things, like, you should have like kicked him really hard under the table, and then replied, well, you apparently were a vibrational match to get kicked. I was so mad. I wanted to throw my water at him, or I was like, but I could tell he was so entrenched in his belief, and he so believed this yoga teacher. And I have nothing against yoga. What I have a problem with is what she was teaching. Okay. Which is aside from physical yoga practices. She was teaching very toxic spiritual things. And like, I just wanted to punch him in the head, and I am not a violent person. Joe says, OMFG, I hate that crap. And Crystal says, oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, that was some pretty messed up stuff, right? And so I'm thinking in the moment, I'm like, do I try to have a discussion with him? Because I've had people say, well, you should have tried to teach him. You should have tried to like explain it to him. You should have tried to like help him see the light. And honestly, guys, what I've noticed over the years is when someone is so entrenched, if I try to explain things to them, they just door slam, like, and they don't listen. And so that's why I just come onto my own platform here, and I talk on my soapbox here, and those of you who this resonates with, great. But he was obviously so brainwashed. There literally was nothing that I could say. And so I was like, okay, I'm never going out with this dude ever again. And I definitely don't want to go to that person's yoga classes. Yeah. And Joe says, step away from the crazy man. Yeah. The thing is, I mean, yes, he's responsible for what he chooses to believe, but this was a female teacher who was teaching a big class of yoga trainees. It was very horrible. Okay. So, for those of you who are just joining, today's topic is why I no longer call myself New Age. And I was going to go through just a list of 11 New Age deceptions. And then I decided, no, it'll be more interesting if I give some stories to help illustrate my journey along the way of how my rose-colored New Age glasses became more and more and more cracked over time, to where now I kind of want to throw up, actually. Like, I can't even, there's no way I could call myself New Age because there's just so many, in my humble opinion, my genuine personal opinion is that there are so many dysfunctional, toxic beliefs. Does that mean that all of it is 100% bad? Absolutely not. I still use my crystals. I still use, there's still new agey things that I do, but I definitely don't identify with the majority of beliefs and practices, for sure. Okay, so next story is that, I'm trying to think of how many years ago it was, like 8 or something years ago, 9-ish years ago. I was living in a community where there were some issues that were coming to the forefront regarding sexual predators that were working in our spiritual community. And there were, in this particular case, the sexual predators were male, but since that time, just FYI, I've become aware of female sexual predators as well. So this is not a man-bashing thing at all right now. But at the time, it was women who were coming forward who had been seriously harmed by some different men in our spiritual community at the time, where I was living. And there was a very interesting response in the general spiritual community. And the overall response was to shut the women down and to tell them, you need to stop focusing on the past. Just forgive. Like, just forgive. This whole holding on to the past and what happened, that's non-spiritual. It's non-loving. You need to open your heart and just forgive and trust that these people that these men are never going to do this ever again, because they've said they're never going to do it ever again. And we are loving, and so we're going to forgive them and say and believe that they're never going to do this predatory behavior ever again. And so the main theme was, you need to just forgive, because when you're focusing on the issue and try, like the people that were trying to ask for something to be done, like these men need to stop working in the spiritual field, like asking for rational actions to be taken, like please stop working with clients, like please stop doing spiritual teaching. If you're going to still be a predator, you need to stop doing that. But instead of focusing on that, it was just forgive. And guess what? These predators, I came to find out as things unfolded, a few years down the road, they were still doing their predatory behaviors. Of course. But the New Age response was just forgive. Open your heart. This person is a human being just like you, and all they want is love. You need to just love them. If you love them enough, they will stop doing those whatever things, right? Did that work? No. Those predators were still being predators years later. So then in 2016, I went through a major psychic attack that I talk about in my book, Darkness Disguised as Light. You can get that on Amazon, Darkness Disguised as Light by Maya Zahira. And so I'm not going to go into that whole story, but I'll give a little nutshell, which is that I went through a crazy, very, very scary, terrifying, frightening period of psychic attack. And what I want to focus on here is the response in the spiritual community that is very typical of New Age. And it was like when I tried to reach out to my colleagues for like help, like what should I do? Because what I've been taught back then, what I'd been taught in the popular New Age for how to protect myself wasn't working. And so I was reaching out to colleagues who were older than me, thinking like maybe they have answers that I don't. And they would tell me things like, well, you must have some darkness within you, because it is impossible for you to manifest something unless it's something unhealed within you. So in other words, you're causing it. You must have something unhealed within you. So that was one thing that several elders in the community told me, spiritual New Age elders. You know, and it was basically you get what you focus on. You must have been focusing on this, or maybe you had some kind of darkness, like unresolved shadow within you. So you've projected this outside of yourself, and that's why this is happening. And then there were other people who said dark entities don't exist. So there's a very common belief in the New Age that dark entities do not exist, and you're just making this up. And so none of that was helpful. And then my rose-colored glasses were really smushed. My New Age rose-colored glasses were really smashed after that. A couple of other random stories. There was an event that I went to at a spiritual center. Gosh, it was, I'm trying to remember how many years ago it was. It doesn't matter. But so this was a spiritual center that I used to frequent a lot. I used to go there a lot in the city where I used to live. And there was this older couple there, because we were all socializing, chit-chatting beforehand. And she was all like glassy-eyed. And I think back to my time really entrenched in the New Age world. I remember a lot of people being very like glassy-eyed, where they weren't really present, and they were just like, ah, I don't even know how to imitate it, but she was saying, oh, I've had this spiritual awakening, and now I understand that we are all one, and there's nothing to defend yourself from, because everything is divine, and we're all one. And then the event started, and it was a sound healing event. And by the way, I love sound healing music. I use it all the time. I was listening to sound healing music earlier today to cleanse out some negative energy. But this event was problematic because it was put on by some young people. No, I have no issue with young people. Inexperienced, that's where the problem arises. So these were a group of young people who were inexperienced in discerning energies, and they were creating music with different instruments and activating different frequencies. And as a clairvoyant, what I could see was that they literally opened a portal in the center of the room, and all of these entities started pouring through. And it was one of these sound healing events where they also had yoga classes at that studio. So everybody had a yoga mat and like eye pillows, and they were all like comfy. They had their yoga blanket over them. Everybody was like receiving these energies. And I'm sitting there in my little nest that I had created, and I'm sitting there on the far end up against the wall, and I'm seeing like, okay, here's all these people who are like, we are all one, and they're all in La La Land. And meanwhile, I'm seeing all these entities coming through this portal and attaching to different people. And now this was actually before I went through the big psychic attack and big spiritual awakening in 2016. So this was kind of like a precursor event for me, because at that event I was like, why is no one else seeing this? Like, why does everyone think everything is wonderful? And I was like freaking out, going like, what? How come they think this is okay? Like, this is totally messed up and kind of freaky, and it freaked me out. And so I very quietly left, because it was a meditative event. I didn't want to make a big scene. And so I chose to take good care of myself, and I slid out. And then after the event, the person who owns the studio messaged me, and she was like, are you okay? And I said, well, the energy wasn't feeling good to me, so I chose to leave. And she replied back and said, well, everyone else thought the energy was so blissful, and they thought it was amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty messed up. Just a side note, and I'm not trying to like overly promote my book, but I want to say there's a lesson in this book, Darkness Disguised as Light, where I explain what happens at events like this, and about those feelings of bliss that can happen when you're at a spiritual event. And that's actually a sign that negative entities are hooking into you. It's not a good sign. Like disembodied, being in La La Land, blissed out, that's not good. Okay? So if you want to know more about that I explain that thoroughly in the book. I have some other stories, but I think I'll just leave it at that. Those are the most potent stories, I think. So now, and you guys feel free to share anything that you want to share. I'm going to go through my list of 11. These are 11 New Age deceptions. These are the main problems that I have with New Age. And I want to emphasize that I'm not telling anyone what you should or shouldn't believe. If these are things that you do believe, that's fine. But, maybe this will give you an opportunity to think a little bit more about why you believe that. I think it's good. I personally think it's really good and important to always be evaluating what you believe and why you believe it. Where did that belief come from? Like, did someone tell you that? It's like, and then you just took it in without thinking about it? Did someone that you, like, is there someone that you think is more knowledgeable than you? They told you something, so you just took it as gospel truth. So I really encourage questioning. Okay. So these are the 11 New Age deceptions. I do think that they are deceptions, going back to what I was saying before about like being in like a false program. I do think that there are a lot of aspects of New Age that are literally false program. So it's kind of this dual thing that I'm saying right now. I'm saying everybody has free will. I acknowledge everyone has the right to believe, and I'm not judging. And simultaneously, personally, I believe that the main aspects of New Age are deceptions and that they're harmful. Okay? I really think so. So this list is in no particular order. And if you're a note taker, this would be a good time to take notes if you feel like it. Okay, number 1, deception. And you guys feel free to add little comments and stuff. I want to just check my device really quick. Okay. Number 1 deception is we are all one. We are all one. There's no individuality. There's no individual personality. But the problem with this is that it causes dissociation from yourself. And also what's focused on in this we are all one is the dissolution of the ego. The ego has been demonized big time. And the thing is that people are confused. They think that your ego is the same thing as being egotistical. And that's not the same thing at all. It's a misnomer. You actually need the ego part of your personality to be an individual and to be able to celebrate your uniqueness and your gifts and to be able to share your gifts with the world. And so, yes, on one level, we are all one, but that doesn't negate the fact that we're also individuals. And a lot of, I wouldn't say that that's true, that what I'm going to say is true in my current city, but in other places that I've visited and lived, I have noticed that glassy-eyed, spaced out kind of look that I mentioned before. And I really noticed that a lot with people who are really into the we are all one, because they've they're attempting to completely disassociate from themselves and from their feelings and from their personal human experience. And in my humble opinion, that is very unhealthy and it's dangerous. And then it also opens them up for all sorts of issues, including entity issues and all sorts of issues with lack of discernment and etc. Okay, so I'm going to go on to number 2. If there are any deceptions, New Age deceptions, or whatever you want to call them, New Age falsities that come into your mind, you can share those as well in the comments. There might be some crossover in some of these. Number 2, evil does not exist. Evil entities do not exist. Like, negative energy does not exist. Everything is God. Everything is God. And since everything is God, all is good. Everything is good. And therefore, there is nothing to protect yourself from. Now, if that isn't a belief that sets you up for entity infestation, I don't know what is. But the people the people that I've encountered in spiritual communities who believe this, in my observation as a clairvoyant, they have been the most entity infested that I've encountered. Well, I've met a variety of people, but they are not free of entities. We'll just say that. They have lots. And meanwhile, they believe that negative entities do not exist. And so they're an easy target. Such an easy target because they're not even trying to protect themselves from it. So all that stuff just gloms onto them. And it's kind of alarming to walk around a spiritual event, just like be walking around chatting with people and to be seeing this. It's really alarming. So number 3 on our list. Boundaries are unspiritual. Number 3, deception. Boundaries are unspiritual. Boundaries are putting up walls. It's unloving and unspiritual to have boundaries. So whether that's like setting up spiritual boundaries of protection, whether that's communicating your boundaries, letting someone know that's not okay with me, whether it's saying like if it's boundaries, saying that there are certain people that you choose to have around you and certain people that you choose not to have around you because maybe their behaviors are harmful or toxic to you. Nope, that's not acceptable. That's unloving, right? This is actually one of my pet peeves, is the lack of boundaries, And it is such a pet peeve of mine. And I really struggle with this at the spiritual events that I go to and that I work at. I work at different psychic fairs sometimes with my work. And almost every single time there will be another reader or healer or vendor who will, I will approach their booth area or they'll approach mine. And the experience is of a complete lack of boundaries. And in fact, this happened recently where another reader sat down in my booth, perfectly lovely lady. So I'm not trying to bash anyone at all. But they sat down in my booth space and they proceeded to start reading my energy and giving me a psychic reading. And we did not have an agreement that they were supposed to do a psychic reading for me. We were just chatting. And then all of a sudden they were accessing my energy and saying, oh, like, I see this happening to you in the next 5 months. And I said, I want to stop you. I believe very firmly in consent. And I think that you need to ask for consent before accessing my energy or doing a psychic reading for me. And she said, oh, okay, I totally get it. And I said, great. I was like so pleasantly surprised. I was like, because usually either it goes right over their head or they get hurt and offended. And I'm like, fantastic. She gets it. This is so great. And then after she said, okay, no problem. I totally get it. Guess what happened? Then she goes, so what I was saying is, and then she kept right on doing the psychic reading. And then I had to stop her again. And I said, I did not give you consent to do that. And she goes, well, this is the first time I've ever heard anyone say anything about consent with psychic readings. And I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, just shoot me now. I'm kind of speechless right now, actually. I've had so many bad experiences with this in the new age. And I've actually been kind of labeled a troublemaker because when I have spoken up and tried to set boundaries, like in a very kind way, but a firm way, then they're like, oh, what's wrong with that lady? Oh, it's you. I don't want to talk to you again. Because I set boundaries with them. Hopefully everything is good with this person that I just mentioned that I had that issue with recently, but I've had so many bad experiences. Oh my God, it's not even funny. So lack of boundaries, complete lack of boundaries, like oblivious. It's like a lot of New Agers are just oblivious to boundaries. It's not that they even believe that they're wrong. Well, some will say to my face, boundaries are unspiritual, blah, blah, blah. But others are just completely oblivious. Like, if I even point it out to them, they don't even understand what I'm saying. Like I'm speaking a foreign language. And this has happened multiple times where I'll set the boundary and then they act confused. Like, what? I explain it. Okay. And then they keep doing it. And then it's like they don't understand at all boundaries. Very frustrating. Karen says, I'm with Jeff Brown on the new cage movement. It's become a grift and a con, and many of them have gone full QAnon. Yeah. Karen, I am so glad that you brought up Jeff Brown and his terminology, the term that he coined, new cage movement. I love Jeff Brown. I love his material. And as I was making notes for this class, I totally he didn't pop into my mind, but I'm glad that you brought him up, because he has this really great book, you guys. It's called Grounded Spirituality. And it has a very grounded approach. and I just loved when his book came out. I loved his bravery in coming out and speaking about some of these things that he talks about in his book and in his online presence, because at the time I wasn't brave enough to come out and talk about what I'm talking about tonight, because people would just throw tomatoes at me and it gets frustrating. So I appreciate his work very much. And it's because of people like him that people like me have been kind of following in his footsteps in our own ways. Rochelle says, I've been to shows where they either started readings without permission or won't even make eye contact. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, number 4 on the list of 11 New Age deceptions. If you focus on something, you will draw it to you. Ooh. If you focus on something, you'll draw it to you. If you focus on something negative, then that's fear-based, and then that's going to draw it to you. And I do have another story. I have another little story. And it was at a psychic fair several years ago. There was a very lovely lady selling little pieces of jewelry, mostly like bracelets like this. And she had different containers of different kinds of gemstone bracelets. And it was very busy, a very busy day. And she was standing up against one part of her booth with her back turned. And I walked into the booth, and I go out of my way to not tell people what to do. I really believe in free will, and I don't try to go around being the energy police or anything like that. But I immediately felt kind of concerned because it was so busy and her back was turned and she wasn't even paying attention to, like these bracelets were so small. I was like, people are shoplifting left and right in her booth, right? I just knew it intuitively. So I was very sweet. I went up to her and I said, hey, I don't want to step outside of what's my business to speak about, but I just feel concerned that people might be shoplifting, and you might, turn toward the customers so that you can see what's going on and that they'll see that you're seeing them, and that will be helpful, because I wanted her to succeed in her booth. And again, it was very unusual that I usually don't make suggestions like that because, it's unsolicited advice, right? Most people don't like unsolicited advice. But anyway, what she said to me was, well, I don't focus on that kind of thing. And she said something very telling that I will never forget. She said, I don't focus on that sort of thing. I'm afraid that if I focus on it, it will draw more of it to me. And I went, oh, how interesting. She literally said, I'm afraid if I focus on it, it will draw it to me. She was literally being fear-based about, oh, if I focus on this, but the whole thing about if you focus on something negative, you'll draw it to you. The common New Age speech is, well, if you focus on something negative, that's fear-based thinking. No, being afraid to look at something, that's fear-based. Okay. So I also will say that what you resist persists. So her fear of even thinking about shoplifters, like, who knows what energy that was creating? I don't know. Okay, number 5. If something bad happens to you, it is because you were energetically aligned with it. And I already told the story about the horrible date and his yoga teacher who was sharing horrible victim shaming teachings with her students. Like, oh my God. Erg. If something bad happens to you, like if you are the victim of a crime, if you develop an illness, if some other random negative thing happens to you in your life, if you experience a psychic attack, like any of the list of many negative things that could happen to a person in their life, if that bad thing happened to you, it's because you had a low vibration. And that is so messed up. Okay. I don't believe that at all. It pisses me off to even talk about that one, because what it does is it gives so much of the New Age community an excuse to go around victim shaming and illness shaming. And that is like, it's a total lack of compassion. Like the people who are saying, oh, we're high vibration and we are all one. And then meanwhile, they're completely lacking in like real presence and compassion. Instead, like, oh, I don't want to even talk to someone who has an illness. By the way, when I started talking about having medical issues and having autoimmune issues, and I was really struggling with my health a few years ago, I literally had some of my colleagues in the city where I was living, they literally unfriended me because they felt that if they were exposed to, like if they saw any of my posts where I was talking about needing help or needing assistance, that would cause them to become sick too. Like, that's sick? That is sick. That is so effed up, really. Hi, Courtney. Good to see you. Okay, so we're talking about the 11 New Age deceptions. Number 6 is the overemphasis on trust and opening your energy to anything. The overemphasis on trust and opening your energy to anything. A few months ago, I went out to lunch with a person and she talked about how she channels entities and then she turned to me and said, so you work with psychic protection? And I was, again, I go out of my way to not, like, I don't want to be bossy with people like that. It doesn't feel good to receive that energy, and it's not my job to do that. So I'm letting her be herself, right? And so I was very gentle with her, and I said, well, yes, I do work with psychic protection. And I explained a little bit about what I do and about how I teach students how to become more discerning, how to work with different kinds of energies, but how to be discerning about what they're working with. And what she literally said, well, I just work with anything that comes along. I just don't worry about it. I was like, okie dokie, maybe that's a problem. And that's all I'm going to say about that story. Number 7, deception of the New Age. Reiki, crystals, essential oils, past life regressions, etc., 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 can heal anything. Now, do I believe that Reiki or crystals or essential oils can help with things? Yes. I do Reiki on myself every single day. I did Reiki on myself last night to help alleviate some symptoms that I was having. But it's this whole extremist view. Reiki can heal everything and anything. And then guess what it ties back into? Then if you aren't completely healed of everything, that must mean that you have a low vibration and you caused it. Okay? So this whole extremist view that Reiki or crystals or essential oils or past life regressions or fill in the blank with whatever New Age practice or traditional practice, because there's a lot of New Age that incorporates a lot of old practices, but it's all kind of lumped together. But like any of those practices, like it will fix you, it'll heal you completely. And then if it doesn't, then there's something wrong with you, right? And I think that's really messed up. Jessica says, I'm just joining. Hope all is well. I'll go back to watching afterwards. Hello. Okay. Deception number 8. The blank, fill in the blank. The blank are going to save us. Oh my God. This is one of my pet peeves. The aliens are going to save us. The Pleiadians are going to save us. The Galactic Council of Light is going to save us. The Ascended Masters are going to save us. And this is one that I've noticed. If I am talking with someone at a spiritual event, a colleague, and they're expressing these views, like, oh, the Galactic Council of Light, blah, 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 they're here to save us. And I don't agree with them, and I just have a neutral response because I'm just holding space and letting them believe whatever they believe, because free will. If I don't go along with it, they start to get really uncomfortable and upset because they want me to agree with them. And it seems like the most triggering thing for them out of this whole list, that when I don't when I don't in an obvious way buy into what they're saying, it's very triggering. Now, when something is really triggering like that, it usually means that a person is not fully secure in that belief. So they might be a little bit insecure or not completely sure. Like there's something underneath the surface that's like not totally sure that what they're saying is correct, but because they feel scared about some things in the world or in their life, they really want to cling to this belief. And if someone they look up to or appreciate as an equal or a colleague doesn't agree with it, then it upsets them. So the problem with this deception that the aliens or the Pleiadians or the whoever's are here to save us is that it keeps us from being self-responsible. It keeps us as human beings from being responsible for issues of social justice on the planet. And because there's all this focus on, oh, there are spaceships above the planet right now, and they're all having meetings about how to save the earth and blah, blah, blah. I've heard people say that at different difficult times over the last few years. Oh, this person channeled a message and they've said that there are spaceships above the earth and they're cloaked and blah, 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 and they're all going to save us. And what that's doing is it's causing dissociation. It's causing the person or the group of people to put all of their power into this outside source instead of staying anchored and grounded and saying, okay, what the hell are we going to do about this shit show in front of us? We need to help the homeless people. We need to help this social justice issue, this issue, this issue. Okay, this dissociative crap is very frustrating. Number 9, New Age deception. Don't take anything personally. Now, there is a book, like I said before, I don't throw everything out. There's a book called, I just lost what it's called. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I like the book. I enjoyed reading it 30 years ago. I don't know when it first came out. It was helpful to me. But the New Age has gotten a hold of it, and they use it to bludgeon people over the head and abuse people. And what I see over and over again is people will do bad things, like bad behavior to others. And then they'll respond, oh, just don't take anything personally. And I've seen lots of examples of people in spiritual leadership, spiritual teachers, doing and saying horrible like acting horribly to their followers, and then saying, don't take anything personally. Okay. And so it is, it's an excuse for being abusive to others. Now, the original teaching, the original book by Don Miguel Ruiz, I think is a perfectly beautiful book. But there's this tendency in New Age to take perfectly wonderful, fine teachings and to put them to the extreme and to use them in highly dysfunctional ways. Okay. And number 10, New Age deception is nothing is real. Nothing is real. This reality isn't real. Only spirit is real. And in relation to that, one of my pet peeves is when people say, none of this is real. Only your spirit is real. This body is not real. When they will say, you are not a body. You are not your body. You are your soul. And I know that sounds really nice. I know it sounds really lovely. I hate it. Because I think it's showing hatred toward your body. You are your body and your soul. This whole extremist thinking in the New Age, like, well, if your spirit is important, that means that your body, we're just going to completely negate your body. Well, you are your body. You are of the planet Earth. You are part of this planet. You are in physical form. You choose to come into human physical incarnation for a reason, not to disassociate from your body and say that you have no part of your body. You are only spirit. I don't know who came up with that, but I hate it. Hate it, hate it. Nothing is real. This physical reality isn't real. Only spirit is real. Well, guess what? Spirit is real, but this 3D physical reality is also real. Because if someone came along and punched you in the face, that would feel real, wouldn't it? I'm not suggesting that anyone punch anyone, but you get my point. And number 11, deception, is this tendency to believe in the next big prophecy. Number 8 that I spoke of, where like the aliens or the ascended masters are going to come and save us. I mentioned how that one is super triggering for spiritual followers when I don't in an obvious way agree with them. This one also really upsets people, my colleagues, when I just am very neutral when I start talking about the current prophecies or, and I'm actually, it's so triggering for people. I'm not even going to talk about what the current prophecy is because people get so upset. I'm going to talk about some of the past prophecies and we'll just approach it that way. Y2K. Oh, all of the computers are going to like explode. Maybe the world is going to end and, or like we're going to have this big awakening and in the year 2000, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fast forward. So that all never happened. 2012. Oh, the Mayan calendar. The world's going to end. Or maybe the world's not going to end, but we're all going to have this big awakening. And blah, blah, blah. And even now, like after all of that, there are still people that I'll hear on YouTube who are like, well, we didn't literally ascend in 2012, but it's happening in a more gradual, subtle way, blah, blah, blah. So it's like this, I'm trying to think of the word, but like they can't face the fact that the prophecy didn't actually happen. So they're just creating another story around it. Cognitive dissonance. It's this cognitive dissonance. Like they can't accept the fact that that the 2012 prophecies didn't actually pan out. So they're going to say, well, we didn't actually mean it that way. We meant it this way. When I was a kid, I lived in California during the first part of my childhood. And there was always this prophecy that California was going to fall into the ocean. And I would hear that prophecy and I would feel scared, like, oh, hopefully I'll wake up tomorrow morning. Like, hopefully I'll still be alive. This whole prophecy thing, it ties back into number 8, which is like, there's this outside source that's going to save us. It's this whole dissociation from your body. There's this like thing that's happening to all of us. A lot of the prophecies have to do with either the world is ending or we are all like or that the whole planet is ascending. And then the dissociation is that because everybody's in la la land, oh, we're all ascending. They're not present and they're not focusing on the social justice issues. They're not focusing on all of that because they're in la la land way up here. So that's my list of 11 New Age deceptions. And, it took me about 15 years to really get to this point where all of this is super, super crystal clear. Because 15 years ago, I was very entrenched in the New Age world. And I just can't, I can't anymore. And even if I'm trying to make new friends with colleagues, when they start talking in these ways, I'm like, oh, I can be kind, I can be supportive, I can be friendly, I can try to be a good colleague, send referrals their way or whatever, being supportive, being friendly, but they're not people that I can be friends with because it's such a dissociative way of being, and it's so anti what my values are, which are authenticity and presence and groundedness. So those are my opinions. That's my soapbox. I honor you, whatever you believe, and I invite you to question whatever you believe. Always, anything that you believe, ask yourself, why do I believe this? Where did I get this belief from? And, don't be afraid to listen to content or read material that has an alternate view, because it's either going to help you shift your view or become clearer in why you do believe what you believe. So I'm a big proponent of exposing yourself to a lot of different ideas and beliefs and questioning things. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I need to scoot in a minute because I've got a private class coming up. But I do want to remind you that if you'd like to go deeper and work with me one-on-one and in a group, that would be in our online 12-month Spiritual Empowerment Academy. And currently, and actually for the last year, I have no longer been offering one-on-one sessions to the public. And I'm really glad that I made this change, because the reason is that I see much better results with people who make a long-term commitment, and rather than just one-time sessions here and there. And I want the best for you. I want the best results for you. So our group program, Spiritual Empowerment Academy, you can find that on my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And you can access one-on-one sessions through that program, but there's also a ton of support within the group format. So once again, thank you everybody for being here, and I'm sending you all my love. Let me know if there's a topic you want me to cover in this coming year. I already have a list of things that I'm brainstorming, but I love getting suggestions. I'd love to know what you're needing. And if it resonates for me as well, then I will come on here and cover it in a future Facebook Live. Thanks, everybody. Sending you lots of love.